Sometimes art imitates life, and a series of backstage issues had a great effect on WWE's flagship Monday night program last night. And no, this has nothing to do with flickering lights or mics that cut out a bit. This is Raw Graded. Power cut to start Raw. More on that as we go. Apollo Crews is back. He's defending his United States Championship against MVP. The match that we were meant to see at the pay-per-view is happening now. The lights are flickering throughout this match as both men trade advantage. At one point, MVP gets pulled out of the ring by Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, only to eat a beautiful somersault plancher from Crews. Lashley gets involved during the break that puts MVP in charge, but Apollo won't be denied. He powers on through. At one point, MVP goes for a German suplex. We see Apollo Crews roll through, no sell it, scream, and then pick up MVP for the toss powerbomb for the 1, 2, 3. Apollo Crews retains his United States Championship. He says backstage that he's going to give the old US Championship to his kids to have on their wall, and he is going to wear the one that MVP paid for with pride. MVP is furious, and he wants a rematch against Apollo Crews at SummerSlam. Giving this match a B-. Some beefy moments, but otherwise quite slow and plodding at many points. The finish was very out of nowhere as well. I thought he could have built to that a little bit better. Great to see Apollo Crews back, and let's see him build on this as United States champion. The Golden Role Models are backstage and they present a music video all about last week and their accomplishments over Asuka. I believe that's Red Pepper, the famous In a World movie announcer, doing that. Either that or a sound alike. Their video is interrupted by a video of Asuka just screaming for revenge, which is a bit wild, but I like Asuka when she's mad like that. Sasha and Bayley upset that their video has been doctored. Here comes Shayna Baszler, who said that she's done watching other people have fun, and she slaps Sasha Banks firmly across the face. Later on, we find out that we're going to see Sasha and Baszler going one-on-one. Fingers crossed for that. The KO show is up next. Kevin Owens battles against microphone cutouts to introduce his special guest, Wwe Riott. Wwe still elated after her big win over Peyton Royce the other week, and she says she only wishes that Liv Morgan was there to see it. Kev then brings out his surprise second guest, Liv Morgan, and Liv wants to hear what Wwe has to say. Kevin Owens talks about how he's burned a lot of friendships along the way in his career, and he wishes that he hadn't, and he wants to make sure that Wwe and Liv don't go the same way that he did. So he urges Liv Morgan to hear Wwe Riott out, and Wwe speaks from the heart about how she felt that she wasn't good enough to be on Raw, how she felt that Liv Morgan was excelling without her, and it made her jealous and angry, and that's why she turned on her. She's apologetic. She points out the tattoo that she's got on her leg, which is the date they debuted, and Liv Morgan's got the same one. Wwe was great on the mic here. Before she can finish her speech, she's interrupted by the IIconics, who just run down Wwe and Liv and Kev and everybody, and Liv Morgan seems to side with Wwe Riott at this point during this back and forth. We see a little bit of the bridge being mended, but the IIconics keep on and on. Kevin Owens asks for some technical difficulties for just the IIconics, which causes Peyton Royce and Billie Kay to slap the taste out of Kevin Owens' mouth. On cue, we see Wwe Riott and Liv Morgan jump the IIconics. And when we come back from the break, it's a tag team match. We see Riott get a bit of a shoe in this one, makes a break for it, gets that hot tag to Liv Morgan, who runs wild on both of them. She manages to get a roll up onto Billie Kay for the 1, 2, 3. Short and sweet match that sees Morgan get the win. Afterwards, the IIconics go to attack Liv Morgan and drop her on her head, but Wwe Riott comes in to make the save, and there's some knowing smiles and nods between both of them. and Ruby Riott holds the ropes open for Liv Morgan to leave. Then Liv goes, no, I'm holding the rope open. And that's a sweet little moment. Both end up leaving, but there is a good distance between them. They're not fixed as friends, but they're being mended. So I'm glad that we didn't just suddenly go back to, way, all pals at the palace type situation. I'm glad that we're still building that. Giving this whole thing a B-. I love Kev's work here in putting over the Riott squad. Ruby Riott on the mic was really great here. Just real earthy emotion from her. IIconics a great foil as well. And I've enjoyed the slow build of the return of the Riott squad. Every so often they'll do it where just a tag team will get back together because of reasons. Oh, by the way, you're a team again now. I like that we've slow built to the return of the Riott squad, just because it makes that return feel more important. And it's going to add a much needed tag team to the women's tag division, which I'm all for as well. Breaking news from Charlie Caruso, a box has fallen over backstage. That was literally the news. A box had fallen over, apparently under suspicious circumstances. Cut to the shifty dog stood next to the box. MVP speaks for all of us. He walks in and goes, why are you talking about a box when I've just been screwed out of my US Championship? And then Caruso informs MVP that she was going to come and find him and tell him that Apollo Crews has accepted his challenge to a rematch at SummerSlam. Just as MVP is in his pomp about this, Shelton Benjamin turns up and says, oh Dad, somebody's stolen my 24/7 title. 24/7 title's been nicked. I wonder who could have done it. Cut to the shifty dog. Drew McIntyre is in the house. He is out to talk about Randy Orton. He talks about how similar they are, how 10 years ago Vince McMahon said to both of them that they are the chosen ones in this business. And Drew's career kind of went on the beaten track from that point, which we've talked about before. But he talked about how Randy Orton got chance after chance. Talks about how Randy Orton was the golden child, how he was born into this business, how he's had shortcuts and born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and how he doesn't even want to be here. This brings out Randy Orton eventually, who refutes the idea that he doesn't want to be here, says how much he loves kicking people's heads off, and he's excited to kick Drew McIntyre's head off when he gets to SummerSlam. He then challenges Drew McIntyre to say one new opinion on Randy Orton. He says, a lot of the stuff you say about me, you're quoting from other people. And it's stuff that I've heard before. Tell me something new. And then Drew McIntyre goes deep into the pathos. And says how way back when Drew McIntyre was in a dark place, and he was in WWE and he was in a dark place, his career was on a downward spiral, his mum was ill at home, and he said Randy Orton walked past him and had nothing to say to him. He said that Randy Orton kind of considers himself a locker room leader, yet does not extend that hand to anybody. Talks about how on the Last Ride documentary, how Randy Orton praised The Undertaker for putting a hand down and pulling him up. And he asks, how many people have you pulled up, Randy, during your time in the locker room? He then says, you are not a leader, you are a selfish prick. It was just, the cadence of Drew here was just beautiful. Drew then says he's got a bunch of receipts for Randy Orton for SummerSlam, from boys in the back that he's put down, from Hall of Famers that he's kicked the head off, and Drew promises to take the head of Randy Orton, and he will see it coming. And then Drew's music plays, Orton stares down the ramp. Oh, man. This was an A. This was an A of a promo. Drew McIntyre on the microphone has been given the ball and he is charging with it. He has been so good. Randy Orton has been doing some of the best mic work he has ever done. And I love these promos from Drew because they really pull from somewhere real, somewhere very, very real and earthy, and you can see they're just left to do it. And I'm excited for their match. Like, stuff like this builds for me. Like, I want to, as a fan, I want to see Drew kick Randy Orton's head off, to make up for all those years that have lost. But this was great. So far, this is the highlight of Monday Night Raw for me this week. This promo for SummerSlam between Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. Ric Flair talks to Kevin Owens backstage, tells Kevin to stop being a counselor for people like he was in the ring earlier on for the Riott squad, and says to focus on himself a bit more. Kevin Owens says very much what he said in the ring earlier, saying that he's kicked a lot of friends to the curb over his career, and he's seen the error of his ways, and he wants to be a bit of a leader backstage, more so than Randy Orton is. In fact, he tells Ric Flair to tell Randy Orton, let's have a match next week. So it looks as if next week we're going to get Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton, which should be a good match. I like how Kevin Owens is sort of building this anti-Randy Orton character, whether or not this is building to the next feud along for Orton. To have somebody in the locker room who very much loves and lives the locker room, and somebody who just can't be bothered with it all. I'm cool with that. Out comes Nia Jax, who gave WWE official Pat Buck a bit of a shoo-in last week. She is out to the ring with Pat, and she looks as if she's about to say sorry, but instead she changes her mind mid-air, it seems, calling Buck a scrawny, undeserving little runt, and challenges Pat Buck to a match there and then. And Pat Buck is like, no, I'm not having a match with you. After several attempts from Nia Jax to get Buck to fight him, calling him ginger, calling him short, saying he's got little legs. It's just okay. Eventually Pat Buck goes, nah, we're not having a match, and you're now suspended indefinitely without pay. This leads Nia Jax to headbutt Pat Buck. At least we think it's a headbutt, because Pat Buck falls to the ground touching his nose as if, oh no, she broken my nose. Here's the problem. Nia Jax had a lot of makeup on, and there is almost like the face of Nia Jax on the chest of Pat Buck. So you can see that the headbutt just landed flush onto the chest of Pat Buck instead. Why is it, this of all weeks, Ross isn't here? Like, this Raw is loaded with WTFs, and there's plenty more to come. He'd have had a field day with that. I'm giving this a C-, right? Nia Jax just comes across as really tough to get through. She's forced, and it's just not great wording. I don't buy her at all. And the bit where she headbutts a guy and it's blatant that she hasn't. I think because the Drew Randy promo was so good, and then that just sank. As Nia Jax leaves, Shelton Benjamin, R-Truth, and Akira Tozawa come charging down the ramp. Hey, looks like the 24/7 title match is happening right now. The belt has been recovered, and the triple threat is happening immediately. Good back and forth between R-Truth and Shelton Benjamin. Some comedy stuff between Akira and Shelton that ends with Shelton powerbombing Akira Tozawa, possibly into another time zone. R-Truth getting involved in this one as well, and ends up eating a pay dirt from Shelton Benjamin. The Ninjas get in the ring to try and fight off Shelton Benjamin, and he ends up wiping out one of the ninjas. Then other ninjas jump in, and then Bobby Lashley and MVP get amongst it, start beating them up as well. We see Benjamin, MVP, and Lashley fighting the ninjas around the ring. Back in the ring, Tozawa hits a senton on Shelton for the 1, 2, 3, and he pegs it with the belt, having become the new 24/7 champion. C+ for this. This was a short, snappy, fun bit of nonsense and a title change, so it's nice as well. Wasn't loads to write home about that match in particular. It wasn't great, but it wasn't awful. So the C+ is kind of like the nice default that we go for something like that. After a recap from last week, which saw Seth Rollins and Dominik Mysterio get amongst it, Dominik throws out the challenge to a match against Seth Rollins at SummerSlam 2020. What a way to mark the 15th anniversary of the custody for Dominik ladder match at SummerSlam. Dominik throwing out the challenge to Seth. More on that later. And following their altercation earlier on tonight, it is Shayna Baszler versus Sasha Banks in a non-title match. Baszler has the number of Banks to get us started. A few times feigning kicks just to punk her out a little bit. Banks gets a little bit in here thanks to the interference of Bayley. Bayley jumps onto the apron. Baszler's distracted. Banks hits a code breaker onto Baszler's arm. Works over the arm for quite a while, and then Baszler starts to fight back into this. At one point goes to break the fingers of Sasha Banks, do the stampy thing that she used to do in NXT, but Banks reverses it into a Banks statement. Both end up rolling through it and hitting kicks on each other, which knocks them both down. Then Asuka appears down the ramp and attacks Bayley at ringside, and the referee calls for a DQ. Is that a DQ? Is that how that works? Did I miss a meeting during my referee night class? Because I don't remember a match being stopped because somebody's manager got attacked outside the ring. But be that as it may, it just descends into chaos. We go to break, and when we come back, Asuka is in the ring with Charlie Caruso, and she is just swearing revenge, pure bloody revenge on Sasha Banks. She wants a rematch for the Raw Women's Championship at SummerSlam. Shayna Baszler gets into the ring now and says that she's rooting for Asuka. She wants Asuka to beat Sasha Banks at SummerSlam because when she does, she is then going to break Asuka apart and become the Raw Women's Champion then. This brings Sasha Banks and Bayley back out, and Sasha says to Asuka, you can have your match at SummerSlam if you can beat this member of the Four Horsewomen, Bayley. And Bayley looks very upset by this whole situation. Doesn't want to face Asuka next week, clearly. This whole thing was a B+. I thought the match with Baszler and Banks was a shame to give that away. Like, I feel like we could have built to having that match on a bigger stage. I feel like we gave that away on TV with not much build. The finish was a bit crap as well. But the stuff they did in there, I liked because it kept Baszler strong. You gotta keep Baszler strong. Asuka on the mic was super serious here as well. I like angry, serious Asuka. And we continue that nice build of the golden role models and the potential turn. And we don't quite know which direction it's gonna come from now, as Banks has put Bayley into a match against Asuka. She's not happy about it. Some great storytelling bits here. But I think some elements of the match knocked the grade down a bit for me, which is why I'm giving it a B+. We've had a few clips teasing this throughout the night, but now it is officially time for WWE Raw Underground. Now, chances are you're here watching this review and you've already seen bits of this, and you're here to see what I made of it. We'll talk through it. We'll talk through it before we do anything. It's basically the training ring in the Performance Center with the turnbuckles and the ropes all taken off. Load of dust and smog sprayed into the room. Performance Center recruits in masks banging on the canvas, and some women dancing on the side. And then in the ring, it is just sort of grappling ground and pound tightness in the center of the ring. It's basically Shane McMahon's no blood sport. Shane plays the MC for this, and we get to watch a few people just beating each other up a little bit. And then he introduces us to Dabba-Keto. He says, please bring in Dabba-Keto. And it's only Babatunde, isn't it? From NXT and the Greatest Royal Rumble and the main event, now available on Netflix. It's Babatunde. But Dabba-Keto gets into the ring, the squared square, beats up a nobody very quickly, then beats up another one. And then Shane McMahon raises his arm as a winner. He doesn't leave awkwardly. Shane's there going, okay, let's bring out some more fighters. Let's bring out some more fighters. Right, we'll be right back. And you can kind of see Shane smiling a bit here to go, oh, this is a bit crap, isn't it? I'm not going to grade Raw Underground here. I'm going to grade it in a little bit. We'll grade it all at the same time, so stick around. Street Profits are breaking social distancing by charging through the crowd ahead of two singles matches, ahead of their title defense at SummerSlam against Andrade and Angel Garza. First match we get is Angelo Dawkins going one-on-one with Angel Garza. There's a bit on the mic before this where we see super serious Montez Ford talking about how they are family compared to two people that Zelina Vega threw together. And that's what it's all about at SummerSlam. We want the smoke and all that jazz. It was nice. Dawkins dominating on Angel Garza. Montez Ford getting really pumped up outside the ring and then suddenly collapses. And Dawkins is checking on him, and as Dawkins is checking on him, Garza attacks, hits a low drop kick and gets the pin on Angelo Dawkins. Like, what? And then we remember a little something from the promo before the match. A little something that we remember. We rewind. And there we see Montez Ford taking a little drink of his cup, pulling a face. He's been poisoned, isn't he? He's been poisoned. So subtle. I went back and watched it and went, oh yeah, that's fun. I thought he was just mugging to the camera before. No, that was a storyline bit. We come back from break and Montez Ford, despite being poisoned, is back around and he's facing Andrade, and Andrade is just battering him. And Ford just can't really get it going. At one point, Ford hits a dive to the outside of the ring, gets back into the ring, starts shaking the ropes, and then just collapses again. And that's when the referee calls for the bell because he can't continue. Referee calls for a medic, and then we see the medic checking on Montez Ford as we fade to black on this scene. Giving this a B, two short, decent little matches with a storyline thread all the way through. Nice new wrinkle to this storyline. And as we will find out in a bit, we're not quite sure who the culprit is. We'll touch on it in a bit. Murphy and Rollins are milling around backstage. Murphy asks Rollins if he's thought any more about Dominik Mysterio's challenge, and Rollins smiles and walks away. Oh, I think he has, all right. And I think we're going to find out in the ring in a bit. Probably. Then it's back to the Raw Underground Fight Club, where we have Erik from the Viking Raiders clattering a nobody, and I mean clattering. Just drops him to the ground and just screams in his face as he knocks him out cold. Shane McMahon is the MC, and he's just loving everything about this. And then that's that. So well done, Erik. I guess you're now in the Fight Club. Maybe, not quite sure. Erik actually looked really good as a fighter. I just want to point that out. Sort of like a Norse tank Abbott. Big fan of that. Outside the trainer's room, Charlie Caruso is there. Angel Garza, Zelina Vega and Andrade turn up. We then see Angelo Dawkins come out of the trainer's room along with Bianca Belair. Turns out Ford was poisoned before the match. Dun dun da 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 da. Shifty dogs. Bianca Belair immediately accuses Zelina Vega, and Vega's like, well, no, because it would affect our tag title match. Of course I wouldn't do that. Bianca don't care. She's taking her earrings off, and she goes for her, and everybody has to hold everybody back. This is a wild brawl that we'll probably see more of next week. Who poisoned Montez Ford? Was it Zelina Vega? Angel Garza? Andrade? The Denver Broncos? Owen, the editor? Ross Tweddle? Batman? Batman's mate, Keith? I don't know any more people. We then get footage from the security camera. It's been a wild night on Raw, and we find out earlier on today, 5 hoodlums turned up and threw a Molotov cocktail at a generator, and they run off, scampering off into the night. Now, I've watched this clip a couple of times, and it looks like it's 4 blokes and a woman. You certainly hear the voices of 4 distinct voices and then a female voice. So who set fire to the generator? Was it Zelina Vega, Angel Garza, Andrade, the Denver Broncos, Owen, the editor, Pablo, Adam Pacitti, this man? I don't know any more people. Seth Rollins and Murphy head out, and they are targeting Tom Phillips, who last week on Raw was yucking it up whilst Dominik was attacking Rollins with a kendo stick. And Seth takes him to task for being a biased official and says that if he's going to be biased, he's not doing a good job and he needs to be replaced. He calls Murphy to sick Tom Phillips. Samoa Joe at this point stands up to defend his boy Tom Phillips and says, you ain't taking him out. I was laughing twice as hard as anybody else here, so what are you going to do about it? Samoa Joe takes off his jacket, takes his headphones off. When we come back from break, Samoa Joe's got his shirt sleeves rolled up. He's outside the ring. Rollins and Murphy are in the ring with chairs. And then there's Dominik with a Singapore cane. Clatters the back of Murphy, clatters the back of Rollins, sends Murphy out of the ring, hits a beauty of a 619 onto Seth Rollins, then dives out of the ring onto both of them, sends them packing. As Seth's on top of the ramp, he accepts the challenge from Dominik for a match at SummerSlam. We even get a little sneaky preview of Dominik's theme music here. If you heard some music that sounded different, I think that's Dominik's theme music, you know. Giving this segment an A-. This was great work from everybody involved. I thought Seth and Murphy, great as the greater good. Samoa Joe here was great, lest we forget that Joe is a legit badass. And top marks to Dominik in this sequence looked pretty flawless, in my opinion. And I'm ready to see him go to town at SummerSlam. Bring that noise on. Nicely done. Our final stop of the night is Raw Underground. We see Dolph Ziggler choking out a nobody. Well done, Dolph. That's a big win. First one in quite some time. And then the Hurt Business turn up. They teased about 10 minutes ago that they were going to come looking for Raw Underground. And, well, they found it. MVP, Lashley, and Shelton Benjamin. They declare that they now own Raw Underground. Lashley gets into the ring, takes off his jacket, and challenges anybody to a fight. He wipes out a nobody. MVP says, I want to have some fun too. He gets in the ring, takes off his jacket. He wipes out a nobody as well. Shelton Benjamin gets in there, and MVP says, hey, that guy was talking about your mama. Nice throwback. Nice throwback. Another throwback was the person that was apparently throwing the insults at Shelton's mama. And it was only former Raw announcer Dio Madden, who didn't get a name check at all, but we haven't seen him since November. He gets into the ring and ends up getting pummeled by the Hurt Business. After which, all three members of the Hurt Business just go into the crowd and say, who wants to fight? And it begins to look a bit like the big market on a Saturday night. Just everybody going for everybody. Just a lot of fighting. The Hurt Business leave everybody pretty much laying, get into the ring, and they say, and Shane McMahon turns up, just flies in, and says, oh, this is great, I can't wait to see what happens next week. Then puts down the mic and legs it. And MVP gets the last line by saying, we are the Hurt Business, and business is booming. And that ends Monday Night Raw, and that ends Raw Underground as well. Right, Raw Underground. Okay, this has been pretty much hung, drawn, and quartered online. I'm going to give this a C. Right. This whole thing is confusingly two ideas. It felt like two ideas. They just decided to do both, and it watered down everything. When I first saw the clips of this, I thought this was the introduction of Babatunde. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Shane McMahon is doing this Fight Club thing, and they're going to use it to get over Babatunde. And Shane's going to manage him. All right, that's interesting. Why is everybody insulting it? And then I saw the other bits throughout the night where it just wanders off. Erik from the Viking Raiders has a fight, which I doubt they'll reference again. And then the Hurt Business, and then this is where I think this is the other idea. The Hurt Business end the night buying it. And MVP is like, yeah, we run this now. I feel like this was meant to be the original idea as well. I think somebody pitched, right? I think different people pitched Shane McMahon managing Babatunde and introducing him via Raw Underground. And I think somebody else pitched, what if the Hurt Business ran an underground fight club? And somebody went, look, we're running short of time. This has been a chaotic taping for Raw, which it has been. See this morning's Cultaholic News to find out more about that. And they must have just gone, oh, just do both. Just do both. And we'll do some skits in the middle. I feel like this was just two ideas that neither were 100% committed to. So consequently, this segment fell down a bit. And it just raises lots of questions that break the suspension of disbelief. Like, Dolph Ziggler is great at shoot fighting. Work, shoot, fight, work, fight, shoot, fight, as it was. Why doesn't he do that all the time? Is Erik now a singles guy doing this? Because now when you've got these guys who have done these, like, IRA fighter, I am Bloodsport, I am Josh Barnett in WWE. Now you've got that. Like, it seems weird to then see Erik go back to being who Viking Raider. This is the problem that Brawl for All had, where it was all the gimmicks stripped back and then they were expected like a week later to go back to doing what they were doing, and it just confuses things. This is half-baked ideas being thrown out there because there is a deadline coming for Raw and they need to get a show together. If this had more time, more thought, more consideration, this could have been quite cool. But it just feels like it suffered at the hands of, we're on a deadline, we don't know what we're doing, we've changed Raw 400 times. You want to do Raw Underground to get Babatunde over? You want to do it as a Hurt Business thing? Just do both. That's what it feels like. And that's why I'm grading it a C, because I don't think it was particularly strong. I feel like the ideas are there, but I don't feel like it was communicated properly on television. I'm sure you'll chastise me for not giving it an F, but I firmly believe this is a good idea. Just executed quite badly. Overall this week, Raw balances out to a B-. That grade is thanks to a belting promo by Orton and Drew, and some great stuff featuring Seth and Dominik and co. Everything else was just sort of there. Some of it was pretty weak as well, and obviously Raw Underground happened too. And the irony is, this particular week had a show-long storyline that saw backstage shenanigans affecting what we saw on the screen. That is art imitating life. That is truly art imitating life. Stay safe. Love you, bye.